Today, I'm breaking down my tight end fantasy football tiers ahead of the 2026 season. 40 up, 40 down. Going to be starting off with the big dogs, your Brock Bowers, your Trey McBrides, your Colson Lovelands of the world, but plenty of attention to be paid to the late round prospects and even the guys who probably shouldn't be being drafted, but I'm doing so anyway because I'm freaking sick in the head, people, looking at you, Terrance Ferguson. But truly is a great day to be great. And with that, guys, let's get after it with Mr. Tight end one, tier of his own, tight end one, Brock Bowers, guys. All right. We're 1 year removed from probably the best rookie tight end season ever. Shout out Mike Ditka back in 1960. I'm not trying to take away from the old heads, but one of the best rookie seasons of positions ever seen. And what happens last year? Disaster. Chip Kelly fired before December. We had an atrocity of quarterback play, all right? Geno Smith leads the league in interceptions and sacks. He's out down the stretch of the season as well, last couple games. Brock Bowers has over 100 yards in the first three quarters, suffers a knee injury against the Patriots. Like everything that could go wrong last year did go wrong for Brock Bowers. And he finished as a tight end 2 in PPR points per game, guys. Tied with George Kittle. If you look at Tucker Kraft's numbers and do a little bit of massaging with some of his missed games, he would be number 2. So top 4, if you want to be, again, a little bit less provocative about it. And that was, again, in a worst case possible scenario. We haven't seen a best case scenario for Brock Bowers. Maybe, just maybe, it's this year when Clint freaking Kubiak goes ahead and makes Brock Bowers this year's JSN, all right? I know we've been looking at wide receivers, Devontae Smith in the Jigba, Jalen Waddle, like Lab McConkey. There's all these different kind of year 3 wide receivers or just guys coming on to new offenses and new roles where we're using that who is this year's JSN to be like who is going to have this again. Huge leap and go from being this early round pick to being someone who legit finishes as a top 5 player in fantasy football. Why not the guy who literally just got JSN's offensive coordinator in an offense with no one else to get the football to? All right. So at the top of the draft, all right, it comes down to, do you prefer Bowers over guys like Trey McBride and Colson Loveland? And then more importantly, are you actually willing to draft Brock Bowers amidst all these top 10 wide receivers and top 15 running backs that are going to be there for you in round 2? More and more, guys, I am willing to do that. All right. So the quarterback room, it's not a strength, but it's moving up in the right direction. We don't really have room to go even lower than last year. I think we've been over that, but Kirk Cousins helped unlock, arguably, Kyle Pitts down the stretch of last year. I'll give Pitts more credit. I don't think Cousins is exactly a juggernaut at this point of his career or anything, but was capable enough last year to get Kyle Pitts going with some real big numbers, okay? And then if and when the Raiders decide to be done with this sham of pretending like Fernando Mendoza should really be on the bench for all that long, we get the number 1 overall pick, fresh off one of the best freaking college football seasons that we've ever seen. Truly, now tossing the rock to Bowers. So Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders are probably going to be bad guys, but this looks to me more so like a 2025 New Orleans Saints bad, potentially, all right? We're going to have the young quarterback, but we should feel much better in Mendoza than Tyler Shuck, with all due respect to Tyler Shuck, coming on late and trying to build that momentum for the next season, all right? I know with the Chip Kelly stuff, Pete Carroll, Spytech, Brady, it hasn't been the best start to this organization, to this new regime going on here. So maybe we see them pull the plug, fire Clint Kubiak 12 weeks in the year. Even saying that as like just to try to check myself, it just feels so outrageous. So could we be wrong? Yes, I'm wrong every freaking year, guys. We're going to be wrong a lot more this year, but I'm more confident in the stretch run for Brock Bowers relative to other guys on bad teams like we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Mention the Kubiak factor. And the big difference maker for me, Bowers versus McBride, we don't have a Michael Wilson. We don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. We have Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, and Jack freaking Besh. Michael Mayer, who we will talk about later. I freaking love that dude in Dynasty. He is arguably bigger target competition than those guys, especially when looking at Bowers, but I don't think there's any relevant target competition here to worry about for, again, maybe the single best tight end in the league already. If you want to call him a glorified slot receiver, I think you're wrong, but even then, 150 plus targets, guys. It's a good thing I don't run the RotoWire projections because I would just be outrageous with all these. But again, we have him at 135. Only Trey McBride is higher at 140. And again, if I ever find a way to hack those projections, I would have him north of 150. So again, McBride's a great football player. I'm a lot more worried about Mike freaking LaFleur and Carson Beck down the stretch than I am Clint Kubiak and obviously Fernando Mendoza. So that really is the big time tiebreaker there for me. Faith in that ticket, faith in Bowers just being a little bit of a better football player, not that McBride or Loveland or these guys are bad. And accordingly, I am willing to draft Brock Bowers in round 2. And accordingly, guys, one of my favorite freaking draft strategies is, I'm going with it, the Super Bowers draft strategy, all right? We get a sick running back in round 1, whether that's Jonathan Taylor or we're picking between Gibbs and Bijan and McCaffrey, first 5 picks. We get our sweet running back. We lock down the RB1 spot. Round 2, hopefully your league mates let Brock Bowers fall to you. We go ahead and take Bowers. And then from rounds 3 through 7, we just attack one cool wide receiver after another. Sure, we're going to miss out on the top 12, 13 guys, but Ladd McConkey, Emeka Ibuka, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson. There are so many great wide receivers who I do want to have exposure to inside the top 40, 45 picks. I draw the line right around that wide receiver 50 spot. Matthew Golden, Wan'Dale Robinson. There's a few guys who leaked through. Jalen Coker, Rashid Shaheed. I'm sick enough in the head to still kind of like throwing some darts at Travis Hunter. But after that, I don't want to be drafting wide receivers in round 14. We might get a hit. Maybe it's Trey Harris. Maybe it's Jalen Naylor or someone like that. I want handcuff running backs there. I want guys who are one injury away from immediately being relevant, not a wide receiver who we all have collectively decided, given the ADP, is not worth our time, and then stashing them on our bench for what? For them to finally give us a good game in week 7, and then us to start them in week 8, and then get the bust factor, because wide receiver production, especially from the 3s and 4s that are being drafted, it's harder to predict than just about anything. Sick RB round 1, Brock Bowers round 2. We take 4 or 5 wide receivers next. We dive into an awesome late round quarterback pool. Jared Goff goes in round 11 in these home leagues, guys, right now. And that's worst case, all right? You might even be able to get someone better than that. And we just use kind of a committee approach to get that RB2 spot sealed. So long story short, loved me, so Brock Bowers. He's my 16th ranked player overall. My guy Theo, also with Team RotoWire, has me even higher at 12. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Brock Bowers. This year's JSN could do some really big thing, guys. Last point before we move on. Benjamin Solak, amazing writer over at ESPN. For my money's worth, like when I'm trying to learn more real life football and everything, Ben Solak and Nate Tice over at Yahoo, the first 2 guys I pay attention to. One of Ben's board predictions, Brock Bowers, offensive MVP this year, goes ahead and messes around, breaks a single season receiving record for the position. I'm buying in Brock Bowers no matter what. Tier 2. Overall tight end 1 upside. I do think Brock Bowers is going to be the overall tight end 1. But again, if I am wrong, these would be the top 3 candidates I think can get it done. My tight end 2 is Colston Loveland. Please give me a second, all right? Don't turn it off just yet. Tight end 3 is Trey McBride. Tyler Warren's tight end 4. Let's get these guys on the board. Loveland versus McBride is very, very tough. But this is the tricky part with rankings sometimes. It's one of the reasons why I am going ahead and making this move. I feel like I'm not in the minority when I say I like drafting Loveland more than Trey McBride. But it comes down to that cost. It comes down to Loveland going to round 4. Trey McBride, depending on where you're drafting, sometimes round 2, sometimes round 3, but he's regularly going a little bit ahead of Colston Loveland. And a big part of that is now people saying, okay, at cost, I do like Loveland more. But man, I feel like this way, ranking Loveland tight end 2, Trey McBride tight end 3, when someone looks at my ranks now, they know for sure that I really want to draft Colston Loveland. I'm not telling you if Trey McBride's on the board at the end of round 2 and you really want Colston Loveland to take this dude early. No, you should be waiting. Equal. God, it's a freak. I really think it's a coin flip. Equal. Okay. Who scores more? And that's to take nothing away from Trey McBride. This dude is awesome. 17.1 PPR points per game over these last 2 seasons. That's 7th among tight ends and wide receivers. He's been crushing it. If I knew that we had Jacoby Brissett starting 17 games, I would probably be willing to go ahead and say, screw it. Just why even make a big deal out of this, Ian? Let's go with Trey McBride, tight end 2. But we don't know that. And in fact, I look at that Cardinals schedule. This is a team where I'd be very surprised if they have more than 1 or 2 wins after 10 weeks of the year. And at that point, it's going to be Gardner Minshew, or it's going to be even worse, and it's going to be Mr. Carson Beck down the stretch run of this season for a horrific team. And what do we see when this happens, guys? Yes, sometimes we see stuff like last year. Trey McBride, Michael Wilson. Guys get injured. They aren't brought back because it's like, why are we even kind of bring you back in this really, dog shit end of the season? And then we get garbage time stuff. 1 week after another. Cardinals led the league in freaking, Jacoby's pass attempts were insane last 9-10 weeks of the year. Maybe that happens. I don't like hinging a round 2 or round 3 pick in fantasy football on someone whose team that we absolutely expect to be horrendous. If you are going to do it, we have seen more tight ends from these situations emerge than on other offenses, okay? I looked at the last 10 years, top performing fantasy players, top 12, okay, who are on a bottom 10 scoring offense. There's only been 4 quarterbacks to do that in 10 years, all right? 4 quarterbacks were top 12 in fantasy on a bottom 10 scoring offense. There were 14 running backs. There were 12 wide receivers. There were 24 tight ends. A lot more tight ends on bad offenses in the other positions. I admit that. It's not ideal, though. I don't want to draft the Jets early. I don't want to draft the Cardinals early. I see the volume scenario. I see that he's a really good football scenario. Throw a late round pick at him, fine. Omar Cooper, Kenyon Sadiq at cost, fine. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Trey McBride. I just don't want to buy into these offenses that very realistically could be absolute crap, guys. And that's just not me projecting that. Look at the Vegas implied team scoring ranks. Okay, we can calculate this. They take every single game throughout the year, your spreads and your game totals, and then we go ahead and just calculate that, and we see who Vegas has scored the most points every single game, added up over the course of the season. Number 32 is New York Jets. Number 31 is the Arizona Cardinals. All right, so that's not me crapping on the Jets and Cardinals. It's the guys with more to lose than anyone, the freaking bookmakers out there in the desert, telling us that they're expecting these two teams to be the worst in the league. Maybe you disagree, but if you sat down and ranked all 32, I'm guessing you'd have them far closer to 32 than 1 or even 16 for that matter as well. So Trey McBride's the man in this offense, not so much the man. Again, the change in play caller or someone who we don't like, who's to say it couldn't be an issue like Colson Loveland is kind of facing, all right? Because that would be the why have Colson Loveland over Trey McBride. It's like, well, Loveland's dealing with Luther Burden and Roma Dunze. McBride's dealing with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. I would give McBride the better chance of leading this team in targets over Loveland. I don't think it's impossible to suggest, though, that it gets squeezed in a new offense, potentially with new quarterbacks being trotted out there in the second half of the season, that Wilson and Marv wind up being similar kind of thorns in the side to McBride, as we see from Burden and Rome for Loveland. So that was more so the anti-Trey McBride stuff. To give Colson Loveland some love, though, 48 targets during the Bears' final 4 games. That was 21 more than Caleb Williams' next most targeted guy. Cole Kmet was out there. Yeah, the Bengals game, the initial blow-up, that was also against the Bengals. We did see Cole Kmet leave that early, and he honestly was a decent part in, preventing Loveland from breaking out sooner in this year. But, man, the per route stuff, yards per route run, targets per route run. We like using route metrics. I know they're not super mainstream and it sounds nerdy. And it is nerdy, all right? But it's just the largest sample. We have targets, we have receptions. Those are helpful too. But the routes, that's our largest sample. So the guys who are picking up the most yards per route, the most targets per route, and particularly if we have a decently large sample size, to me, it's one of the best stats we can use to try to just, again, overly judge someone's efficiency. Incredible. Colson Loveland as a rookie, better than anyone pretty much not named Brock Bowers over the course of the past decade. We saw the late season breakout. I did some work this offseason on wide receivers. I'll admit, haven't quite gotten to it tight ends yet, but not all second half breakouts are created equal. A wide receiver, it wasn't a 100% hit rate. Nothing freaking is in this business, guys. But the wide receivers are on playoff teams or at least contending teams who are doing huge things in the second half of the season compared to the first. Much, much, much better reliable indicator than someone who was doing it on a crap team like Michael Wilson. It was pretty much like Amon-Ra St. Brown was the only guy who actually, again, averaged like 8 or more PPR points in the second half of his season compared to the first half, and then went on to kind of keep on keeping on. Otherwise, it's Michael Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, those sorts of guys who were more so doing it on teams that were dead in the water. So I believe in Colson Loveland's talent as a top 5 player. And more so, I 100% went Ben Johnson over Michael Floor, calling the plays for my fantasy team. And I do believe in Caleb Williams. I know the completion rate wasn't great. Caleb Williams averaged nearly a 70% completion rate at USC. I know we're playing in the NFL now, but this isn't some Josh Allen thing where we're looking at his JV stats saying this dude's never averaged a 60% completion rate. Caleb's also throwing the ball away a lot because he's a freaking magician in the pocket and he's avoiding sacks more than anybody, okay? The trick shots are amazing. I understand you can say they're a little fluky is not the right word, but they're harder to replicate year over year than simply getting 5 yards, not getting bored, taking a profit. He needs to be better. He's also entering year 3 in the league, and he wasn't one of these 24, 25-year-old quarterbacks coming out. I believe in the Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson partnership far more than Michael Floor and whoever is going to be under center in Arizona, okay? For me, if I thought Trey McBride was in a different stratosphere from a talent perspective, all right. I think the volume could be very similar. I think the player talent, go ahead and give Trey McBride's done at the NFL level. Trey McBride at this point in time is a better football player than Colson Loveland. That's fine. I think that gap is much, much smaller than the gap between the play caller quarterback combo. and what we're expecting here. I mentioned it, guys. Jets 32, Cardinals 31, and these Vegas team implied scoring ranks. Bears are all the way up there at 10. Colson Loveland, tight end 2, Trey McBride, tight end 3. Let's move on. Tyler Warren now, tight end 4. Unfortunately, we had the literal grandpa, shout out Philip Rivers. Fun storyline, not so fun for everyone that was trying to, again, win your fantasy championships with Colts players down the stretch. But Tyler Warren, for what he did last year, even having to deal with that down the stretch, man, a little round of applause there. Bravo, Tyler Warren. One of just 6 rookie tight ends to actually post top 12 numbers in PPR points per game over the past decade, guys. Over the past freaking decade. And I'll tell you what, it's a list that's not exactly full of scrubs. Had Sam Laporta do it pretty recently, back in 23. Harold Fannin got there alongside Tyler Warren. Brock Bowers in 24. Kyle Pitts in 21. Evan Ingram in 17. So last 4, maybe a little better than those first 2. But again, I think if we had just almost Benjamin Buttoned, I've made this point too about, who was it, a wide receiver? Oh, Emeka Ibuka. If you took Tyler Warren's last 6 games of the year and just switched them, if he came out a little bit slow, but then all of a sudden was posting these awesome tight end 1 numbers, who's to say we'd have the gap we currently do between Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren when we're actually kind of looking at ADP across sites? I don't think Warren's as complete of a player as Colson Loveland. It was a little bit more schemy, a little more RPO touches and everything. But you know what? If we're looking for an offense that's going to keep on scheming the ball to their tight end, it's probably going to be one with very little help at wide receiver. We did not see an adequate replacement for Michael Pittman, who, by the way, works in the same sort of areas of the field as Tyler Warren. We got Alec Pierce coming off the ankle injury. I love Josh Downs. You guys love Josh Downs. I think the Colts love Josh Downs, but man, Tyler Warren last year, there's a reason why he was getting fed more often than Josh Downs each and every week out there. So Warren goes well ahead of Downs. I'm not trying to say like he's a complete surprise to everyone, but for as much hype as there is with Josh Downs, I just think the more realistic answer is Tyler Warren works as the focal point of this offense. So things are looking okay for Downs as well. I will say if and when the Colts do go out there and sign one of these veteran receivers, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Deebo Samuel, like these guys are still out there, it's going to hurt Josh Downs. It's probably going to be taking him out of those 2 wide receiver sets, at least to a decent percentage of the time. Meanwhile, Tyler Warren should be out there pretty much every single snap that he can handle. Last point here that I would really think could be on the table in a couple of years, probably not this year, because why not? When you're inside the 5-yard line, just give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. I don't think Shane Steichen's going to be overthinking that. But we saw it at Penn State, and we even saw it for stretches last season. Tyler Warren, the Wildcat, guys, it's scary. And if they can just teach this dude to all of a sudden be their tush-push guy, I don't think they want Daniel Jones coming off this Achilles injury to be taking extra hits in that area of the field or anything like that. One of these years, we're going to have a tight end, whether it's a tush push, whether it's Taysom Hill Wildcat, BS near the goal line. They're going to score 6 or 7 touchdowns on top of an ample receiving role, and it is going to break fantasy football. That is in Tyler Warren's range of outcomes. I think it's a very small range of outcomes for this season. In the future, though, could be much, much bigger. So very excited about what Tyler Warren could do. I've drafted him a ton in best ball land, just kind of in those middle rounds, because I do think he honestly, probably that gap between him and Loveland is a little bit wide. Redraft, I'm more so playing catch up, I think, at wide receiver, and that a little bit more of a first or last Ricky Bobby mindset for me this year. Because again, I would like to get Brock Bowers in round 2 in the Super Bowers draft strategy. I don't plan on drafting much Trey McBride. Colson Loveland, if I don't get Bowers, I would certainly be very open to taking him at the very end of round 3, maybe early portions of round 4. I think that would be reasonable, but I still got to come up with a catchy name for the Colson Loveland early round tight end strategy. So I got to workshop that a bit, but that would kind of be my thing. All right. Never hate the player, always hate the ADP. If we see Tyler Warren, round 6 or something like that, okay, I can go ahead and get behind it. And to be clear, guys, I never want to go into a fantasy draft with a predetermined strategy. I think that's an easy way to miss out on value that's going to arise, or your friends reaching on other dudes and all of a sudden a dude popping up. But hey, it's one of those things where if we can, have a general idea for how the draft's going to go in our mind and then say, how would I react to it? The Super Bowers or the Super Loveland, or whatever we're going to call that, would be my preferred method there. So never say never on McBride and Tyler Warren. If we are seeing the prices drop to a good range, fantastic. Sign me up. I would say just similar concerns with Tyler Warren when it comes down to a training price. I don't think the Colts are going to be as bad as the Cardinals or anything like that, but I would say, again, Daniel Jones coming off that torn right Achilles, losing another weapon in Michael Pittman, and having his field stretcher and Alec Pierce all sorts of banged up. Again, Tyler Warren, our RotoWire projections, he is one of only 5 tight ends projecting to lead his team in targets for a reason. And the fact that he does work in these underneath areas of the field, it's going to make it easier for a potentially hobbled, potentially reduced arm strength version of Daniel Jones to get him the football. I'm just worried that respectfully, Daniel Jones, who was so freaking good in the first 10 or 11 weeks of last year. You look at his whole career, guys, and it's like, all right, well, 2023 was all right as well. Maybe it was 2022. I think it was 2023. He had the one good year with the Giants, and then he had a great 10 weeks in Indy. Everything else was not very good at all. So if we had to say, what are we getting in 2026? Coming off that injury, I would lean more towards a not good at all range. Not exactly ideal when, again, we are signing up to use an early round to a mid-round pick on these fellas. Tier 3, we are fans, but I have at least one concern, okay? So tight end 5 is going to be Kyle Pitts for me, tight end 6, Sam Laporta, tight end 7, Tucker Kraft, and tight end 8, Harold Fannin. Unfortunately, 3 of these guys are coming off at least some level of injury we have to be maybe somewhat concerned about. All right, Sam Laporta did have offseason back surgery, but he managed to avoid the pup. He'll be out there practicing, so not too worried about that. I'm not worried about any of these 4, I would say, like week 1 availability, but just thought I'd mention them off the top. Tucker Kraft is tentatively, I'm recording this on July 27th, expected to start on the pup list. Not necessarily going to be an issue for his week 1 availability, but I don't like when it's a torn ACL, space, breath, and then something else, and that is what we have here, okay? So again, not something where I think it's going to be a huge, massive issue or anything like that, but it's something, guys, and it's something where we do need to consider it for like someone like George Kittle too, where I don't think Tucker Kraft's going to be pulling in 150 targets in this offense. And a lot of the targets he does get are going to be underneath, so we need him to be at apex, a number 1, 100% form in order to make the most out of these opportunities. So again, for Kraft, torn right ACL, a quote, minor slight meniscus tear. It's just not ideal, guys. But Kyle Pitts, top of the list here. And yes, he is fully healthy. And yes, he's coming off, a freaking awesome year where if you do want to go ahead and be the fantasy analyst that doesn't say per game, and you look at the total points, he was right there at number 2, tight end 2 on the season. So 166 yards, not 1, not 2, 3 touchdowns in that opening playoff week 15. Again, hell of a drug on Thursday Night Football. The damning part here are the splits with and without Drake London. Because let's face it, down the stretch of the season, it was with Drake London, first sideline, and then just kind of a shell of himself coming off his own PCL injury that he was trying to play through. So Kyle Pitts last year, without Drake London on the field, 2.56 yards per out run. That's the second best mark among tight ends. His targets per out run, first. With London on the field, those numbers slipped to 35th and 33rd, guys. So I like the way they were able to get Kyle Pitts some easier looks. I'm going to talk about some downfield stuff here shortly, but it was just asking Kyle Pitts to win as a wide receiver while you are a tight end. It's just not the most consistent thing to ask of your guy in fantasy football land. So the fact that really from week 1 on last year, we were seeing the Falcons get Pitts a little bit more involved in those underneath areas of the field, it was a good sign. I just worry, again, looking at his career, and to be fair, years 2 through 4 for Pitts, it was a situation where, yeah, we had him dealing with injuries. He was coming off that knee. He didn't look like the same player in 2024. We did see a healthier, just bigger, more badass traditional version of Kyle Pitts in 2025. The case here for him doing great things, the play caller, Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Rees partnership in Cleveland. We had David Njoku and Harold Fannin have 4 top 8 seasons combined since 2022. And the quarterback, Tua, great things with Jonnu Smith in 2024. Even got old man Darren Waller, working out well in 2025. And with a lack of target competition other than Drake London, we should be expecting Pitts to either be the 2 or 3, but it should be close. Like him and Bijan Robinson, 90 to 100 targets. Like that's a pretty good range that we should be liking for tight ends. I just don't think the Falcons are going to be very good, And when looking at this range, oh God, Pitts, Laporta, Kraft. I would say Pitts has the better chance of racking up more targets than Laporta and Kraft, because Laporta has his version of London and Amon-Ra. He has his version of Bijan and Gibbs, and he has a Jameson Williams there. I talk about Zachariah Branch way too much. I'm not going to go down it again. I think we all agree he's not exactly a Jameson Williams. Tucker Kraft, I'm more concerned about the injury and the role. And then Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, not exactly, a group of zeros at wide receiver as well. So I'm not going to make the mid-show switch. I'm going to keep Kyle Pitts at tight end 5. Out of respect to him looking at least closer to that allegedly generational prospect that obviously we knew him to be coming out of Florida. We got the great late season run. I can see the path of the play caller and the quarterback. Kyle Pitts, tight end 5. Sam Laporta, I've heard some be like, he's a skeleton key. He's the guy you really need here. Shout out to Drew Petzing. I do think he's a good offensive mind, particularly in the run game, guys. I know the Cardinals, but last year, like a lot of that passing game stuff, again, volume, garbage time induced. But the 2023 and 2024 Cardinals, before their entire backfield died last year, basically. I mean, Petzing had really good things going. Give plenty of credit to, Kyler Murray, but his what's the freaking dude's name? His disciple actually went to Dallas last year with Brian Schottenheimer, and they ended up doing really good things in the run game. Clayton with a K Adams. How could I forget? But yeah, very good stuff from Petzing in the run game. I think that's going to help what was, again, kind of a stale group down the stretch of last year. A lot of really rough games. We had that unreal Giants game for, Jahmyr Gibbs, where he averaged like 10 or 11 yards per carry. But there were some games down the stretch where, thank God, he caught 8 or 9 passes because, again, things were not going smooth down the ground. I'm willing to give Petzing that benefit of the doubt. I'm not so sure he's some sort of tight end whisperer, though, all right? And he might not need to be. Laporta, to start his career, tight end 3, tight end 9, tight end 7 in PPR points per game. I just look at this offense, and it's like Amon-Ra's for sure going to be the one. Gibbs is going to find his way to likely 80 or 90 targets. Jameson Williams, for the first half of last year, was indeed more so the third banana behind Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta. I wouldn't say it's a given that happens again, though. Jamo's on the come up. I think their offense, I think most offenses are better when you have someone as freaking good as Jameson Williams to make them your number 2, get your tight end more as your number 3 or number 4. So that would be the main reason why I have Laporta here. I think there's a realistic scenario where he's the number 4 pass game option in an offense that rules. I keep bringing up these Vegas ranks. Lions are 1. Number 4 in Detroit, probably better than number 2 in, like, with the Jets, you could say. Not Alan Laporta, but this whole tier, guys, I will admit, kind of going back to that Ricky Bobby first or last mindset here, I just struggle to see such a bull case for these guys where, like, all right, yeah, screw the wide receiver 3. Screw this, last kind of RB2 borderline sort of player, my Bashaw Tutins of the world, guys like that. I just don't see myself reaching in for these guys. There's enough of a concern. Maybe it is just one. Enough of a concern for each where I'm not, again, chasing them over really high players. But this is where it kind of comes back to know your ADP, know your provider, guys. Know when you can expect to get these guys. I know drafting on Underdog, which I'm getting away from best ball, but just it's where you've been drafting throughout the summer. And I wasn't taking these guys a lot of the summer, but once they start slipping past the top 100 picks, hell yeah, I've been drafting more of them. Use that same sort of mindset, though, when you are in your redraft leagues, all right? For example, we do have Tucker Kraft. He's someone that in more leagues than not, I don't see myself taking. When I'm on Sleeper, his ADP is tight end 6. He's going pick 68. I'm not going to be taking him there. If I'm drafting on ESPN, where he's going literally pick 108, tight end 11, yeah, I'll take Tucker Kraft every single time he's available there. So again, know your ADP, know who your guys are going to be, and then where they are going accordingly. So talk Pitts, talk Laporta, talk Tucker Kraft a little bit. We'll talk Kraft and Fannin kind of in the same breath, because this is an interesting study I did, all right? Both these guys are very tethered in the line of scrimmage, which, hey, when you're as good as them with the football in your hands, it's okay to be tethered in the line of scrimmage. I do have the concerns, though. Fannin coming off the groin thing, hernia, whatever freaking it is. I was kind of holding him out of OTAs. Should be fine for training camp in week 1 and everything. It's just not ideal for someone like Tucker Kraft coming off the knee, who needs to be the biggest and baddest dude on the field in order to make the most out of this. So maybe they just completely got that dog in them and they're going to be able to overcome it. But you do look historically. Last year, Tucker Kraft had a 4.8 average target depth. We had Harold Fannin at 6 yards. Laporta was down there too at 5.7. Top 3 tight ends in McBride, Bowers, and Kittle were at 7, 7.5, and 7.1 respectfully. You'd have to go to kind of Colston Loveland at 9.5, Kincaid 9.5, Arondé Gasson at 9.4 to find the kind of highest guys being used downfield in the course of their targets. All right. ADOT, average depth of target, I should say. Again, how far are you downfield when you're getting thrown the football on average? We don't need a super sky high average target depth, right? You can honestly make the argument that if you're honestly just always being asked to run down the seam and everything, you're not getting the sort of, PPR friendly 3-4 yard catches. We always think of upside as like the guy who can go ahead and, catch the 80-yard touchdown, which, yeah, of course, we'll take all the 80-yard touchdowns we can get. But guess what? If we get 8 straight 10-yard catches on a drive, that's going to lead to more fantasy points than 1 for 80, throughout the way. Just some good, clean, family fun math right there for all you boys and girls. But anyway, back to the study. We're shooting for the moon here. I want a tight end. If I'm taking them inside the top 7 or 8 rounds, I want a realistic top 3 upside. And I'm not saying these guys couldn't pull it off We did see Kraft before the injury working as the tight end too in PPR points per game. We saw Kyle Pitts do some awesome things down the stretch. Laporta's been very good in his career. Harold Fannin, again, led all freaking tight ends and tackles avoided last season. Really is a beast. He's got Todd Monken now, who did great things with the Ravens tight ends, during his time in Baltimore as well. But I looked at the last 10 years, top 3 scoring tight ends, and I just looked at their average target depth. Because again, we're going for this top tier of the tier 1 tight ends. Only 2019 George Kittle at 6.1 ADOT actually had an average target depth under 6.5 yards. Could Laporta, could Fannin, could our guy Tucker Kraft all of a sudden be used more downfield this year? Yeah, it's possible. But man, based on what we saw last year, we should not be assuming it. And it is just pretty damning, guys. For that to be the only guy under 6.5 yards to register a top 3 season, I don't love those odds. It's a 30-player group. We did see 2024 Trey McBride, 2024 Brock Bowers there at 6.5 and 6.6. Who's to say we couldn't get a couple bombs and all of a sudden get some up there? Travis Kelce had a couple good years under 7, but really was a far stronger correlation, again, between the highest of the high tight end seasons and their average target depth actually at least being not so much in the gutter there. So know the ADP. These guys do fall past the top, 36, 37 wide receivers. If I'm looking at Cortland Sutton versus Tucker Kraft, all right, Kraft mac and cheese, let's get it. Harold Fannin falls outside the top 100 players. It's him and the Vikings running backs. Okay, I need a tight end. Give me Harold Fannin. That's fine. Really going to be tough for me. Top 8 rounds or sooner. Non-tight end premium leagues, probably not going to be for me. Let's move on. Tight end 4, top 5 upside after you consume a Kona Big Wave or 3, all right? These are the guys where, yes, we can tell ourselves a story, but once we actually have to sit down and rank and tier them, there's a reason why I have them, again, making my tight end 9, do tight end 16 spots. And this is one of those things where we kind of see it year after year, guys. There's usually the has and the has-nots at tight end, where at a certain point you look at it and it'll be between tight end 9 and tight end 14 or 15 or wherever the gap is during any given year. And there's like 1.2 fantasy points per game actually dividing these guys up. So I think this could end up being that tier, but hey, if you're able to get one, just ride out some of these bye weeks. Only, there's only going to be another just crazy math fact, only going to be 3 top 3, fantasy tight ends next season. If you don't have one of them, we still got to be able to try to play the waiver wire game and use our late round picks accordingly to hopefully get some guys that can at least boom for us every now and again. So with that in mind, I got tight end 9, Mark Andrews, tight end 10, Isaiah Likely, tight end 11, Dalton Kincaid, tight end 12, George Kittle, tight end 13, Travis Kelce, tight end 14, Jake Ferguson, tight end 15, Dallas Goedert, and tight end 16, Chigozium Okonkwo, new Commanders tight end 1. So at the top, I thought when I was writing up the Ravens team preview earlier this summer, I kind of came in with the impression Mark Andrews was a little bit washed. We had career low marks in receiving yards and yards per target last season. But man, he's had a nice run out, all right? Isaiah Likely went to the Giants. Charlie Kohler went to the Chargers. And now it's looking like Andrews is going to have a chance to get back to that true every down role where we have seen him actually post the tight end 1 overall season before. So getting into why I really don't think he's washed, it's the underlying metrics. Only Brock Bowers last season had a faster top speed than next-gen stats with the football in his hands. Now, Mark Andrews came on that quirky, fake tush-push reverse thing they did, and he busted like a 30-yard touchdown run. So fun time there. I don't think he's necessarily going to be getting that sort of runway, throughout 2026 or anything. But second fastest time of any tight end last year. Mark Andrews very much surprised me for someone who's going to be 31 soon. The separation-based stuff is more so what I'm excited about. Fantasy points, great separation metrics. Make sure you guys check them out. Their average separation score, he was a tight end 6 last year. Then ESPN, who has their open score, which again is actually looking at these guys not just on their targets, all right? Because I see some, I love next-gen stats. I just shouted them out. When you look at next-gen stats separation metric, all these tight ends always lead it because it's literally only doing it at the catch point. So like Cole Kmet one year, I think was the number 1 separator tight end because defenses would accordingly leave him in the flat. He catch the ball, 10 yards of separation. They rally up and, make the tackle for like 4 yards. Fantasy points in ESPN are doing per route. He was tight end 6 for fantasy points and tight end 1 for ESPN. So that's a story that we got to tell ourselves, right? The counting numbers, the efficiency, they haven't been as good, but we lost all the target competition we had to worry about. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler didn't even get that much in the wide receiver way of things, all right? Elijah Sarach, Kobe Lane, maybe they can be something, but it's not even like Cleveland with KC and, Boston. It's pretty minimal, all things considered. should be the number 2 target earner behind only Zay Flowers for Lamar freaking Jackson, who is 1 year removed from being arguably the single best quarterback in all of football. So if Lamar's going to have a nice bounce back year, throw for 40 touchdowns, which Vegas seems pretty confident. Again, it's okay. I personally, when Vegas tells me the Ravens are going to be the 3rd highest scoring team this next season, to me, that's a surprise. That's too high. I would not have the number 3. I'd still find a way for them to be in my top 10, top 12 at the lowest. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about their number 2 pass game option in Mark Andrews. If he does manage to find his way again outside these top 9 or 10 rounds, very much down to make him my late round tight end preferred. Sticking with him, Mark Andrews. It just makes sense. Get him and Isaiah Likely next to each other. So broke his foot last August. I think that kind of sabotaged any chance from having a huge season. And then also with Lamar Jackson. And now the lineup, that didn't help. Had that weird, should have been a touchdown against the Steelers, but it wasn't. Dez caught it, by the way. And then also had the one where he got, again, stripped like at the 1-inch line against the Bengals. So very quirky, not so great season. But what happened? He got paid. He's one of only 6 tight ends now making $40 million plus over the course of their contract. Also, similar to Mark Andrews, utter lack of competition anywhere. Great news that Malik Neighbors avoid the pup list. That's still pretty much it. I'm not worried about Darnell Mooney and Malachi Fields and these guys being that big of a thorn to side for Isaiah Likely, who also has the backing of his head coach in Mr. John Harbaugh. Already said that Likely's going to be putting up bigger numbers than ever now that he's not surrounded by guys like Mark Andrews and Charlie Kohler. So to me, it's like Isaiah Likely is being priced as his late round guy because we do need to be worried about he never has had this true full-time role. Well, why would he now have the full-time role? Well, again, he got paid. And with all due respect to you Theo Johnson truthers out there, I have a really hard time believing that we're going to see this dude in a part-time role with only Theo Johnson as his major problem. So even Chris Manhertz, didn't he go to freaking Tennessee with Dable? Dable brought the most random guys all with him, Tennessee. All due respect to Chris Manhertz. No, he's still there. Daniel Bellinger. That's what I was thinking of. Daniel Bellinger went to Tennessee. That helps. Chris Manhertz breakout season? People are wondering. Last point here on Likely. Some of the best things he's done. God, remember that Chiefs game week 1 a couple years ago? He's so good at getting open on the scramble drill. And to me, that is like Jackson Dart's best part of his game. Like the Jackson Dart 90-second cut up of him just kind of running around and making something out of nothing. You look at a lot of Wan'Dale Robinson's best plays from last year. That was what Dart was doing. I think we're going to see Likely really, really getting on the same page with Dart from that perspective. Very much accordingly someone we should be excited about. Tight end 11, Dalton Kincaid, guys. I might have even moved him up ahead of Likely. We'll keep him here for now. Dalton Kincaid, I think, has a very, very good case as the late round tight end of 2026. Dalton Kincaid, Isaiah Likely, Chigozie McConkle. These are the 3 guys who, more than anything, I'm trying to go to war with and get on my teams down the stretch. We have rankings for a reason. If we are going to see these other dudes fall and be available at the same sort of late round price points as the Kincaids, Likeleys, and Chigs, okay, we'll reassess in our draft. But to me, Kincaid just stands out as the guy where we are literally just one usage data point from having him in the top 6 or so. That's where we're at. This dude did not surpass a 55% snap rate in a single game at any point last season. And he still finished as a tight end 14. That's pretty much where he's being priced this year. We are drafting Kincaid, assuming he's going to have the same role as he did last season with Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes just being annoying and also being out there. Everyone eats, yada, yada, yada. And Kincaid made it work, man, because only JSN and Puka Nacua averaged more yards per route run than Dalton Kincaid last season. That's right. That same stat that has every fantasy nerd losing their freaking minds about Luther Burden, for good reason. Luther Burden's a dog. It's Dalton Kincaid too. And I think it's one of these things where we had these years where, first round pick, Josh Allen, he's going to be his new Travis Kelce. Like, we've gone out there for Dalton Kincaid. We've been excited to draft Dalton Kincaid, and we just haven't really gotten much of it. And, I remember the time he pointed at the 2 Lions defenders, but it's not like we've gotten consistent, these high-end ridiculous flashes from Dalton Kincaid, maybe like someone else. Pick any other stat you want from last year. They're going to tell you this dude was one of the most single efficient tight ends in the league. We just didn't quite have the full-time role. Why did we not have the full-time role? Because Dalton Kincaid has continued to have to recover and deal with playing through this PCL injury. Limited in practice throughout last season. Brandon Beane and these coaches for the Bills have talked about, again, that being a major reason why he wasn't playing in a full-time role. And not to be the fantasy analyst who cried he's in the best shape of his life, but for Kincaid, that was the problem. It was his shape. It was his health. That was the singular reason why he was not playing more. We heard as much from the Bills. Why would the Bills not want to play this dude more often? Their offense was rolling along just fine. And maybe they do want to preserve it, even if he is going to be healthy. But man, if we see Dalton Kincaid get a 75, 80% route rate and actually get featured as the 1A or 1B in this passing game, regardless of how you feel about DJ Moore, tight end 5 as early as week 2. Because again, we're getting Josh Allen, a top 2 option for Josh Allen. I'd be ranking him ahead of Sam Laporta if we knew we had an 80% route rate, ahead of Tucker Kraft, ahead of Harold Fannin, ahead of Kyle Pitts. It's close to Tyler Warren. It's close to Trey McBride. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right, I'm kidding. It's not close to Trey McBride. But man, that's all we need for Dalton Kincaid. We need a week 1 or even a freaking first team preseason, half, where we see Kincaid getting this legit full-time role for the first time. We've drafted him as like a top 7, top 8 tight end as recently as I think last year. We believe in the talent. We believe in the quarterback. We believe in the scoring upside. We have the same OC and Josh Brady who's helped bring this out of Kincaid and the offense as a whole. One data point away from Dalton Kincaid skyrocketing up the ranks. This is the exact example of drafting someone closer to their floor and ceiling. Dalton Kincaid, the late round tight end of 2026. George Kittle's my tight end 12, excuse me. I'm a little worried about the week 1 availability. I don't think he's going to be on the PUP going into the season, missing 4 weeks or anything like that. But it is a situation where they are going to Australia. So just, do you really want that to be it if he's not maybe at 100%, he's at 95%. But regardless of that, I'm still worried, guys, because I talked about in my RB tiers. Same thing with Cam Scatterby and Quinshawn Judkins and even Daniel Jones, over in the quarterback streets. Like, we get in our head where we're just so obsessed. When are they going to be back? When are they going to be ready? When are they going to be active? Is he going to be 100% when he's there? This dude's going to be 33 in October. I've heard people say it's not the as bad type of Achilles injury. And I'm not a doctor, contrary to popular belief. I'm not so sure the not as bad version of Achilles, of an Achilles injury, is still pretty bad. All right. We don't have this long track record of dudes suffering this Achilles injury, coming back and looking great. It's starting to get a little bit better. Cousins looked like a complete shell of himself. I know he's a quarterback and he's older, but took Cam Akers a while to do much of anything. Never really got back on track. Like, Justice Hill is probably our best sort of story at this point. It's been a little bit better in basketball from what I can gather when I watch the playoffs every year. KD, Tatum, and these guys, I get it, but it's problematic, guys. And it is the cheapest chance we have to get George Kittle. So that's the argument. I still got him top 12. I get it. But just like Tucker Kraft, just like Harold Fannin, for Kittle to make waves, because we've never gotten back. The one time we did get a sick 130 plus target, workload, Kittle's putting up historic numbers and everything. Before the injury, if you ask me, Space Jam style, aliens invade the planet. We have one football game to defend the planet, to save humanity. We got to beat the aliens. Like, George Kittle's my tight end 1. No disrespect to this dude. They got Evans, McCaffrey. I'll even throw Ricky Pearsall and Stribling and these guys. We've seen Shanahan repeatedly refrain from giving Kittle these 9 or 10 target workloads that he would probably be able to get in a lot of other offenses. And he's been just fine because he's consistently been one of the biggest anomalies in terms of what they're able to do with the football in his hands and after the catch. Yeah, I'm worried about the 32, soon to be 33-year-old still being that freaking good coming off an Achilles injury. It's just like there's no care to it. Could it work? Sure. I'm just not really trying to put a chip down on it. But if he does fall into the true late rounds, he's going, pick 120 or so, go for it. I will note in the meantime, if you're in a deep enough league or something, and there is maybe, later in August, there's a bigger concern about Kittle. Even if he's not landing on PUP, maybe it could be multiple weeks. Jake Tunges, guys, actually did supply, I think it was tight ends 8, 10 and 9 production during that first stretch of last year when Kittle unfortunately got hurt in week 1. And did some decent things in the last 2 games when Kittle actually had that Achilles in the first place. So Jake Tunges, not going to win your league or anything like that. But if you're in a situation where, the top 20 tight ends are already on other rosters, you're in a deeper league, Kittle happens to be missing a week, don't sleep on Tunges actually coming in there and doing an okay thing or two for at least a week. Tight end 13, Travis Kelce. I mean, we've never seen kind of a worse version of him, but he still finished tight end 10 in PPR points per game last season. It was the first time in several years that we actually saw his yak improve in a meaningful way. It was sliding, and last year it went up a little bit. I do think, a change in offensive philosophy had something to do with that. We didn't see as many screens, for good reason. He's old. Look at him. But man, this is the point where it's like, I mentioned this kind of earlier. We see it every year. Kelce averaged 11.4 PPR points per game. Now he's at tight end 10. And then the tight end 16 was 1.1 fewer fantasy points. Okay. So kudos to the Kelce in a top 10 finish. He's 36 years old. He ran pretty hot last year. Rashee Rice only played 8 games. Xavier Worthy also missed, 3 games after Travis Kelce himself friendly fired him. Can you Chiefs stop doing that? Mahomes took out Rice a couple years ago. This is the only freaking team in the league that has his problems. So Kelce wasn't as bad last season as maybe remembered. He had 3 drops that led to interceptions. That's only happened twice in the last 5 years, and the only other guy to do it was Tyreek Hill when he was still on the Chiefs. I don't know, something about that ball Mahomes throwing, but Kelce, he just seems to me like the guy that we're always going to be ranking around the tight end 1 borderline. But when I'm looking at this group, when I'm looking at a late round tight end, I mean, I'm not looking for a borderline tight end 1. I'm going to be able to find one on the waiver wire in all likelihood because of how small the gap is. I'm looking for someone who can actually go out there and boom in a meaningful way, get into that top 8, be someone that we can actually be feeling good about, the upside about on a weekly basis. I don't think in the year 2026, Travis Kelce is that guy anymore. Pow. Similar sentiment for Jake Ferguson. Again, tight end 11 last season, but the splits are so freaking damning, guys. 18.6 PPR points per game in 4 games without CeeDee Lamb, just 9.4 with him. I don't want to completely overthink it. It's number 1 tight end. Clearly, he's had triple-digit targets in his last 2 fully healthy seasons with Dak Prescott, and we wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys lead the NFL in scoring. But you bring in Pickens. We get maybe a little bit of a leap from Ryan Flournoy. And there are other tight ends in Dallas that like to rotate. It's almost like back to that Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz situation where whenever a Cowboys tight end makes a catch, it's like this pause and you're like, 8-7, 8-6, 8. They're all white. They're all wearing numbers in 80s. It's very difficult to tell who is going to have it. Can we get some different cleat colors or anything? I am begging you guys. But yeah, Jake Ferguson, perfectly fine, borderline tight end 1. If we get an injury to CeeDee or Pickens, all of a sudden, like he is going to be in the risers part of all of our, ranking articles and everything like that. Just struggle to be looking at Ferguson and going like, other than him catching, again, 12, 13 touchdowns, which is possible. But again, I would say unlikely given the wide receivers. I don't think Jake Ferguson is the late round tight end dart we want to be throwing. Again, Kincaid, Likely, and Shicky, who we're going to talk about shortly, more so the guys I'm looking at. Dallas Goedert, though, I could be overthinking him. After all, he scored 13 touchdowns in 16 games last year. I have never seen a flukier, not fluky. He scored them. What's the right word? Pathetic. That's almost like more mean. I've never seen a more pathetic 13 touchdown season. So all due respect, if you can say that after just openly criticizing someone like that. But man, 8 of the 13 scores came from inside the 5-yard line. And we're talking like shovel passes. They gave him a jet sweep in the playoffs. It's like Kevin Patullo just, instead of fixing the actual offense, he just got underneath the hood and repeatedly designed weird ways for Dallas Goedert to score. They were doing these like push passes when he was lined up kind of like over another tight end. He just fall into the end zone. I don't know. I'm sure A.J. Brown was just like on the outside of the formation. Like, are you freaking kidding me? We just called this play. Oh, but it's another touchdown. So it worked out. So career low, 9.9 yards per catch. He's 31 years old at this point, but there's no more A.J. Brown, which is cool. Maybe he does score double-digit touchdowns again, but man, I'm not even just screaming regression here. I'm screaming he's not going to get force-fed the football inside the 5-yard line again with an actual, like, rational human being calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, as we continue to do my 180 on, being terrified of fading Mekhi Lemon to saying, you know what, screw that. Let's draft Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon ain't no slouch, guys. So Devontae Smith. I said a double negative and I just hated myself immediately and then messed up a name. Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon, still 2 guys that we should be expecting to lead the way in targets. Dontavian Wicks is getting hype. I think chasing Dallas Goedert in 2026 feels like a mistake to me. He's cheap enough that, you know what, you want to get him as your late round tight end, go for it. I'm not going to call you crazy. I will still call you Superman, but yeah, Dallas Goedert, it feels like we're chasing 2025 numbers to me. And finally, tight end 16, Chigoziem Okonkwo. I will move him up if the Commanders do not make a big move at wide receiver. I just think they're going to. So for me, there is a gap between Kincaid, Likely, and then down to Chiggy. But if they don't right now, he does have a very similar setup to Likely. He didn't get the same $40 million plus contract, but he did get 3 years, $27 million. That's enough money to make me believe that, yes, this dude is going to be the clear tight end 1 over, Ben Sinnott and John Bates and those guys. So we got the investment. It's kind of a similar thing where just over the years in Tennessee, like Chigga's flashed his rookie year numbers, guys, the yards per out run, targets per out run. They're all up there with Travis Kelce, who's like the best in the league. We just never quite saw a full-time role in a really bad offense, lead to consistent fantasy success. But really fun yak moments throughout his career as well. Had a touchdown against the Saints last season where he's throwing dudes off. I'm like getting chicky with it, man. He is a really fun player. And then you look at the offense where, again, likely only has to worry about Neighbors. Kincaid really only has to worry about DJ Moore. Shakur gets his as well. But given all the volume in Buffalo scoring wise, we can feel a little better about it. Chicky's just got Terry McLaurin for now. I don't think it's if, I think it's when. They either sign Stephon Diggs or maybe Brandon Ayuk decides to show up. He gets cut. He gets his wish. He goes to Washington. I don't freaking know. Keenan Allen's out there as well. I don't think Debo's going to go there. Maybe someone can please trade for my guy, Kayshon Boutte, Washington. It could be you. It could be you guys. They're going to add someone at wide receiver. It's not going to be Treylon Burks and freaking Antonio Williams, with all due respect to freaking Antonio Williams. If it is, let's get chicky with it. I can sign up for it. For right now, tight end 16 for me. Tier 5 could be on the cover of week 2 waiver wire articles. But again, these are more so the guys where even if they are, it's probably going to be because of a big week 1. I don't think we're looking at, this big, huge season or anything. So tight end 17, Hunter Henry. Hey, finally broke the 700-yard mark last season. Took him 9 years or whatever, but 31 years young. He is Drake May's number 1 tight end, but they did they drafted Eli Raridon out of Notre Dame. So losing Austin Hooper and adding Raridon, you could argue could even be more of a problem given the fact that the younger Raridon can maybe bring more to the table. And man, even more so than Raridon, we got AJ Brown, we got Romeo Doubs. Like last year, I feel like given the fact that Hunter Henry stayed healthy, he got over 700 yards. We didn't have much target competition, and we got a borderline MVP season out of Drake May, and he still couldn't finish top 12. Hey, he might be within 0.5 points of the guy who finishes top 12, just not someone that I'm trying to draft and actively go ahead and get going and build my team around. Tight end 18, Juwan Johnson. Pretty much the same thing, guys. Last year went so freaking great for Juwan, to playing this full-time role to start the year, to having Rashid Shaheed get traded, to having Tyler Shuck play truly well down the stretch against a bad schedule, sure, but still played well. Only Chris Olave to worry about, and we still could just get a borderline tight end 1 finish. So he had 102 targets. Only Trey McBride, Kyle Pitts have more receiving yards. We did see early on playing a near every time role, and then down the stretch, it was more 60, 75% snaps. And that matters, guys. We want every single route, especially at a position like tight end. We're not getting the same level of really big plays. I do think Noah Fant, Oscar Delp could squeeze the opportunities more than expected. Delp and Raridon, guys. I know they weren't the biggest names in college, but these are, I believe, both they were 1 and 2 in their former classes. Notre Dame, Georgia, offenses that maybe don't force feed the ball to one position because of how loaded they are across the board. Wouldn't hold that against them. Juwan Johnson has been my most drafted tight end in previous years. I'm not so much in on him this year. Could be a mistake. He's a great player. I saw recently on Twitter, Hayden Wink sent out the Yahoo overall board. And, we got New Orleans Saints beat reporters going out and saying that Juwan Johnson is too low. It is New Orleans Saints beat reporters. I get it, but I do love, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the freaking name, which is sad because I freaking love this dude. Who is it? Nick Underhill. My God. Sorry. Make sure you check out his work. Nick Underhill is the freaking man. Every beat writer should be like him. But Nick Underhill is saying that Juwan Johnson is way too low. And he is, again, enough in the weeds that I would respect his, propaganda for one of his team's players more so than maybe another beat writer out there. But regardless, Juwan Johnson and Hunter Henry, I just really struggle to see the bull case. Could they F around and finish tight end 12 out of tight end, 17, 18 ADP? Fine. Yes. We're big game hunting though, baby. We're going higher, and I would like to, again, be starting my team off with someone else instead. And by the way, guys, I want to be leaving my draft at 1 tight end. These dudes are going to get cut by the time you need to worry about your bye week. Give me the handcuff running backs, all right? Don't worry about, even when you see your league mates taking a second or a third quarterback, taking a second or a third tight end, get your guy. Those dudes are going to be cut by week 1 or week 2, if not even earlier in a lot of cases. And I just think that, again, the more bullets that we can throw at handcuff tight ends, the better, or not handcuff running backs, the better we can always find the second quarterback, second tight end out, again, at a replacement level cost later in the draft. Tight end 19, Kenyon Sadiq. This price tag alone, just for a first-round pick, someone that the NFL thought enough of to be a top 16 overall selection, probably just throw a dart at him. Right? I don't know. I can't quite get there. I should be. The price is fine. I'm not going to yell at you guys again for doing this. I look at this offense. I mentioned what Vegas thinks about them before. Let's talk about Frank Reich, though. That's who we landed on. That's who we got leading the way. Why is it Frank freaking Reich? He did some good things in Philly like a decade ago. In 2021, leads the 9th-ranked scoring offense as Colts head coach. Jonathan Taylor, RB1 season, went nuts, okay? Since then, 2022, he gets fired halfway through the season for Jeff Saturday. Colts ranked 30th in scoring. 2023, Panthers head coach, fired after 11 games, 31st in scoring. Doesn't work in 2024 from what I can find on the internet, aka Wikipedia. 2025, Stanford interim head coach. They ranked 122nd in scoring out of 136 qualified Division I teams. I didn't even know there were 136 Division I teams that qualify for this stuff. So I will say, Matt Ryan in 2022, not the best quarterback situation to be on, at least in the year 2022. Rookie year, Bryce Young in 2023, and I'm guessing Stanford didn't have the second coming of Andrew Luck under center last year. So maybe he's had it all figured out. He's been a victim of circumstances, but now we have 36-year-old Geno Smith, who, yes, was really good in 2022 and 2023. I have my doubts that the Geno Smith-Frank Reich partnership is going to be leading to fireworks in an offense where we have Omar Cooper and Breece Hall eating up those same underneath areas of the field that we would like to see Kenyon Sadiq feasting in. And Mason Taylor, guys, good enough to go round 2 last year, good enough to be the Jets' regular inline starting tight end. We saw it happen for a large portion of last season between Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland. We saw what happened to Dalton Kincaid with Dawson Knox really throughout his entire career, knee issue notwithstanding. It's very problematic, and it's not like we're in a Bears or Bills offense. Or in a Jets offense, I know likely is going to suck. So, fun player with the football in his hands, but still only 21 years old. I like Sadiq more in Dynasty than I do even as a late-round pick this year. Last thing I will say about Sadiq, because I did find this interesting. I was watching him, just throughout the draft process going, man, caught a few passes down the seam, but generally they were just trying to kind of get the ball in this dude's hands. A lot of screens, and sure enough, I looked up last 5 draft classes. This was like in April, so I might have missed out a couple guys who ended up going in rounds 2 and 3. But last 5 draft classes, all the tight ends who went on day 1 or day 2, 34% of Kenyon Sadiq's career targets were screens. That's the highest of any player, which is usually a negative, right? We think of it like a negative for wide receivers. Zachariah Branch, that was the big kind of talking point for him throughout this draft class. Like these guys who was like, they weren't really running routes. They were just getting screens and force-fed the ball at the line of scrimmage. The only other tight ends, though, who are at 20% or higher and getting screens, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin, Elijah Arroyo, and Brock Bowers. So I think at tight end, we actually shouldn't have that negative mindset. It should be, oh, wow, this tight end's athletic enough. He's good enough after the catch to get that OC to actually be feeding him screens, to be designing touches for the tight end in the first place. Very rare. Bright future for Sadiq. Just don't think that future includes 2026. Tight end 20, Brenton Strange. 36 million reasons for the Jaguars to get this dude the football. He was a tight end 12 per game, weeks 12 through 18 last season. Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen take a leap together in year 2. Like maybe he does go ahead and get that 9 touchdown spike season. A lot of mouths to feed though. Parker Washington, BTJ, Jacoby Myers. And again, I still think Travis Hunter is going to be involved, running backs as well. Again, Brenton Strange, perfectly fine. Late round tight end. I just don't think he's got that scenario where we're sitting here, in November going, oh man, ranking Brenton Strange, tight end 5 again. Like, yeah, who could have seen this coming? Very doubtful that's going to be the case. Oronde Gaston, last one in this tier for me. Again, tight end 21, had a 4-week stretch last year, guys. Weeks 6 through 9, 68 yards, 164 yards and a touchdown, 77 yards and a touchdown, another 68 yards there. And then he averages 27 yards per game the rest of the way. So just seeing that stretch from a tight end, particularly a rookie one, is impressive enough. But I have serious questions here, guys. Very, very serious questions. As much as we can write off and say, well, we had the offensive line injuries. Once Joe Alt was out of the picture, they had to keep gassing and block a little more often. I get it. And maybe that is the case. But you signed Charlie Kolar and David Njoku. That sounds to me like a group that's going to be rotating. And who's to say Charlie Kolar couldn't honestly lead this room? I've been toying around more and more with this, but the dude's an amazing blocker. That's why he got the money he did there, right? That fact is not lost on me. I don't think he's like Josh Oliver, though, in the Vikings block first tight end. I think Charlie Kolar, man, this dude had 2,100 freaking yards at Iowa State. He scored 23 touchdowns. That's more than a lot of the top freaking fantasy tight ends out there can attest to having in college. So Kolar, there's a reason why he hasn't been used as much in the NFL. But then again, he was behind Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I just think if you're putting a bet down, who's going to lead Chargers tight ends in snaps? I think it's Charlie Kolar over Gaston, Njoku. Could they rotate them enough so Gaston still runs the most routes and he's out there when they want to pass? Okay, maybe. But if Kolar isn't even that big of a drop-off, like why not keep him out there and keep the defenses guessing more and more? Gaston at this point, Similar to Sadiq, if you just want to take him late because you believe in the upside path, and hey, it's so late anyway in drafts, I'm never going to be hating on someone as like a last 2 round pick. That's just lazy to me. Like, oh my God, you guys drafted this dude whose ADP is at 180. You freaking imbecile. Like, I'm not for that. So if you do believe in the 4 game stretch, okay. I think Charlie Kolar is going to be a major thorn in the side right here. Tight end 6, or I'm sorry, tier 6. I titled it, We Live on a Rock That Floats in Space. Maybe this could work. After all, we do live on a rock that floats in space, so maybe this could work. I am doubtful, though. Tight end 22, TJ Hawkinson. Tight end 23, Dalton Schultz. Hawkinson, he was tight end 2 in 2023, very much aided by Justin Jefferson missing half that season. He was tight end 18, tight end 27 these last 2 seasons. I was more so buying the potential bounce back hype with Kyler Murray improving the offense and everything like that. We have seen it before. Once they added Jawan Jennings, though, that was where it was tough for me. Now we're looking at someone pretty likely to be a number 4 pass game option in an offense that we would like to think takes a step forward, but I'd be fine with, an average, above average scoring offense, expecting it to be top 10 to enable 4 guys. I'm out on that. And then Dalton Schultz, similar sentiment, tight end 11, tight end 28, tight end 15. Could he be one of these guys in the Hunter Henry range where, yeah, he's fine. He's within 1 point of the tight end 12. Okay, I can get that. But Nico Collins returning, Tank Dell, the Iowa State year 2 Cyclones, and an offense that probably wants to run the football and just kind of lean on their defense. Not going out of my way for Dalton Schultz. I'm not going out of my way for any of these guys to actively start in a traditional league. But hey, some of us are in non-traditional leagues, and I appreciate you guys out there. A little more interesting after those 2. Tight end 24, Greg Dole. Small sample size, be damned. Small sample size flyer, everyone. His per route efficiency numbers were baller. It was down the stretch, and we saw the offense help Darren Waller too. So Mike McDaniel was maybe doing some work there. But he's always been one of these guys where we've liked the athlete. We've liked the pass down ability. It's just been a problem of getting that full-time role. And we do not have the likely or the Chig new team or the new extension to help us believe that full-time role is going to be coming out. But we do have a depth chart with no wide receivers that we should be afraid of. They drafted Will Kuzmarek out of Ohio State in round 2. He is very much block first. He made some nice catches down the seam against Michigan. I'm a Buckeye nerd. I watch every single game. Always have, always will. So I'm probably even giving him a little bit too much credit, but did use the day 2 pick on it. They have Bobby Slowick as their OC. He was their senior pass game coordinator or offensive advisor. He had some sort of, role under Mike McDaniel last season. So maybe he likes what he saw with Dulcich here. It's just the offense. Malik Willis, if he finishes under 3,000 yards passing, nobody is going to be surprised. Maybe Dulcich is going to be a number 1 guy with that. Just, I struggle to think that he's going to, again, for the first time in his career, get this full-time role. I think we're probably sitting here in week 2 going, 55% route rate for Greg Dulcich. That sucks. Yeah. I've drafted him a lot in best ball as a literal last 2-round tight end, again, but just in terms of our managed leagues, guys, not going to need to draft him. We'll see what things say in week 1 on the waiver wire. The guy I would be drafting, tight end 25, Terrance Ferguson. This is the latest, grossest tight end dart that I am willing to throw in a generally managed fantasy football league, all right? Only 11 receptions last year, but my God, were they a fun 11 receptions. This is the tight end version of Isaac Tesla or Mitchell Tinsley, where every time they did get the ball, it was downfield, it was for a big play, it was for a touchdown, what have you. Sean McVay, plenty of nice things to say about this dude in the offseason. Now, I know that's kind of a Sean McVay staple to go ahead and always hype up his guys. And why wouldn't you as a head coach? Don't worry about us fancy nerds. Just be nice to your freaking dudes. Absolutely get it. But you do look at the depth chart. Rams have been a team allegedly in the market for a wide receiver because they're looking at their number 3. It's Konata Munfield or freaking, Jordan Whittington. It would make sense for them to add another wide receiver. But if not, we do have the potential with Terrance Ferguson to be basically the wide receiver 3 and tight end 1 in this offense. So that is a scenario we're probably going to need to happen. If they add another wide receiver, it's going to be really tough to get behind because unfortunately, none of these guys that were such a problem for Ferguson last season are out of the picture. We still got Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee, Davis Allen, and they even used a day 2 pick on Ohio State's Max Clare, who is a sort of receiving capable tight end where we could even make things a little bit tougher. So the allure is that wide receiver 3, basically potential, because he's used so far downfield, guys. That's the crazy part. 50%, and I know we only had, I think, 25 targets total on the season, but 50% of Terrance Ferguson's targets last year were thrown at least 20 yards downfield. The next closest tight end was at 21%, all right? So he's got that downfield ability that we talked about earlier. We often see with the highest scoring players at his position. I'm of the belief that if you're able to work downfield, you can do the other stuff more underneath, which he did at Oregon. It's not like he can't catch a screen, can't catch a 5-yard crosser. The opposite, I think, is where it's tough. It's like, oh, can this tight end who's not being used downfield all of a sudden have that, club in his bag? Can he actually put stress on the defense trying to run down the seam? We know Ferguson can do the hard part of being, a high-end receiving tight end. He just needs the opportunities to do the easier parts that we'll actually need to see him do in order to get him in our lineup. But last stat here, and this is why we want to be chasing Terrance Ferguson, though, because we love McVay, we love Matthew Stafford and all that. Last year, though, if we look at team tight end total PPR points per game, the Cardinals were number 1. Trey McBride makes sense. The Rams were number 2. The Rams were the second highest scoring offense in terms of tight end fantasy points, and their top scoring tight end was Colby Parkinson as the tight end 22 in PPR points per game. Madness. Tight end 26, Gunnar Helm. Has some quality per route efficiency numbers, just like Greg Dulcich. Also like Dulcich, we have enough concern. Daniel Bellinger coming with Brian Dable from New York. Also, again, not the most loaded wide receiver room in the world, but I would expect Carnell Tate, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Calvin Ridley all to probably have more targets than Gunnar Helm. I'd like to think the Titans can be better. I'm not really sold on Brian Dable. I do really like Cam Ward as a potential future great quarterback. Need to see more. It's a bit of a leap of faith. Gunnar Helm, probably more of a dynasty stash at this point than anything. Tight end 27, AJ Barner. I wonder if I'm underestimating Barner a little bit. Darnold's thrown for 4K last 2 seasons. Only him and Jared Goff can say that. I think he's good. They love him on short yardage, especially. Fun fact, all right? Number 1 rusher last year in first down percentage on 3rd and 4th with 3 or 4th down with 3 or 4 yards to go is AJ Barner. 87.5%. He only missed one of these tush pushes. They used them on all last year, and they didn't even actually do the full tush push thing. They tried to get cute against the Rams one time. They had their wide receivers out wide anyway. So maybe AJ Barner is that answer that we were talking about. Gets those 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns because they just use them inside the 1-yard line. Maybe it could happen. I just get concerned that the return of Elijah Arroyo turns us into more of a committee and an offense where you paid Rashid Shaheed, still runs through JSN, and Cooper Kupp's not going anywhere. You got Torrey Horton out there too. I don't think we're going to see enough multi-tight end personnel in Seattle to make up for Arroyo splitting things up with AJ Barner. But again, we live on a rock that floats in space. Maybe this could work. Final tier, guys, tier 7. Absolutely no way. It's not going to happen. Maybe it does. Tight end 28, Cade Otton. Tight end 29, Evan Ingram. Tight end 30, Colby Parkinson. Tight end 31, Mike Gesicki, followed by Michael Mayer, Eli Stowers, Pat Fryermuth, Darnell Washington, my guy Charlie Kohler, David Njoku, Eric All, Jatavian Sanders, and Justin Jolly, Broncos rookie. Cade Otton, if we see every wide receiver in Tampa get hurt, we'll be interested in him. Evan Ingram, technically, I guess is still going to be the Broncos tight end 1. We have a couple of these guys all year where we almost unanimously expect them to be a cap casualty, and then it doesn't happen. We just don't quite update. But you know what? Sean Payton has 18 years as a head coach, and we continue to chase those Jimmy Graham seasons. Only Benjamin Watson and Jared Cook turned in a top 12 season other than Jimmy Graham, and they were tight end 8 and tight end 9. So Ingram didn't even get a 60% snap rate in a game last season. It's a little bit of a post-hype thing, but he's getting up there in age at this point. I think he's 33. They added Jalen Waddle. I'm good on Evan Ingram. Colby Parkinson, 9 touchdowns last season. Just expecting a little bit more of a bump forward with Terrance Ferguson. We also did see Parkinson benefit from Tyler Higbee being out. Also added Max Clare. My chip is on Ferguson in Los Angeles. Mike Gesicki, tight end 31. I've drafted so much Gesicki over the years, guys. Maybe the year I don't is a reason why he's going to all of a sudden do his thing. But what gets me, he only got 50 yards in one game last season. It isn't ideal, obviously, but week 13, week 15, T. Higgins was sidelined, all right? Because I thought that's what we had in Gesicki. In 2024, when Higgins was out a game or two, we actually had Gesicki going out there and doing big things, working as that big slot, essentially. 28% snaps and 57% in 2 games with T. Higgins sidelined. That's not going to cut it there, especially with Eric All now healthy. So I got him a little bit lower, but this could be an intriguing one. Dynasty Streets more than anything, but Zach Taylor, fun quotes. I'll even freaking read them for you guys. That's the type of guy I am. Reading you Zach Taylor's quotes on Eric All. Quote, "The word physical in the dictionary is a picture of Eric All." Another quote, "He's trying to put his face through somebody's soul." That's the best way I can describe him. I don't know. Maybe I got to be a little more tuned into Bengals pressers. I feel like he doesn't exactly throw around one-liners like this very often. He does for Eric All. Did some good things earlier in his career in 2024 as a rookie. Just unfortunately had the torn up knee that prevented him from playing down the stretch of that year and then all throughout 2025. I don't think Gesicki, Drew Sample, or even Tanner Hudson are going away. But if you did have to put a long-term chip on this Bengals tight end room, mine would be on Mr. Eric All. The single most guy I'm excited about in this range, though, tight end 32, Michael Mayer. All-time Notre Dame school leader in receiving yards, all-time Notre Dame school leader in receiving touchdowns. We've seen at least a couple of games throughout his career when we have had no Brock Bowers, and he's actually been able to put up some good numbers. 5 catches, 50 yards, and 1 touchdown in week 6 last year, 9 catches, 89 yards in week 17. Unfortunately, got a little bit banged up early in the year alongside Bowers, so he didn't get this super long run of him working alone. But, he could be a starter this year. I know I'm not going to be chasing the ghost of, Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez all the way back in 2012 or 13 or whatever it was at this point. But you look at that wide receiver room for the Raiders. I think Michael Mayer is a better piece out there than Jack Bash, who you kind of just want as a blocker, than Jalen Trey Tucker. There was going to be an offense in the league to really lean on this multi-tight end stuff. I think the Raiders have the personnel at tight end and wide receiver to make it work. It could be like a 2024 Isaiah Likely, sort of like round 18 dart here, where you maybe get a couple games that work okay, just independent of Brock Bowers. Mayer catches a touchdown here or there. God forbid something happens to Brock Bowers, though, guys. Mayer's going to be on the cover of every waiver wire article in the industry. So if you are blessed enough to have Brock Bowers in Dynasty, get a bench spot for Michael Mayer. Really can't stress that enough because he's going to be a free agent next year anyway. This year, maybe it works out okay. Maybe he's traded in the meantime. A lot of good scenarios here for, again, the 24-year-old Michael Mayer. Eli Stowers, I could look dumb for this one. I know he has a lot of fans in the industry. I just think it's a redshirt year. So go ahead. If you want to draft him at the end of round 1, your rookie drafts, guys, go right ahead. I just think if Dallas Goedert doesn't get injured, like what, is Stowers going to be working ahead of Mekhi Lemon or Devontae Smith? Absolutely not. So I think we're looking at tight end. I don't even think Dontavian Wicks. I would be, if there's no injuries, I don't see how Stowers is even better than the 5th pass game option. I'd probably put Saquon ahead of him. The bigger issue, and I've heard some of this, like just kind of reading the tea leaves with some of these beat reporters, like I think he has some work to do to be like an actual inline tight end. I think they care about that in Philly. Like Grant Calcaterra, Johnny Munt, these guys could be problems for Eli Stowers as well. Could be a very fun future. Again, just the amount of yards he had at Vanderbilt and things he did. As someone who had to convert from playing quarterback, like it's nothing against this dude. It makes sense that he has to like work on his blocking and the intricacies of playing tight end. Such a hard position for rookies to play because you have to block like the freaking tackle you're next to and then run routes like the dude split out alongside you. Very, very tough. Eli Stowers more of a dynasty pick for me. Pat Freiermuth worth $48 million on his contract. Darnell Washington worth $42 million on his contract. Very interesting in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure what they're going to run because Mike McCarthy has leaned on 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers for the majority of his career. They got a ton of money locked up in DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman as well. You like to think with this money, it's going to be more Muth, more Washington, but, use the day 2 pick on Jordan Bernard. Roman Wilson is allegedly getting a little bit of hype. I'm interested in what they're going to do. Freiermuth's only 1 year removed from a tight end 14 finish. Darnell Washington is the most fun tight end to watch in the league. Him or Tucker Kraft, but like Washington is just like a shock factor every time he gets the ball. Still see how big he is. Aaron Rodgers likes him too. It's so funny. Connor Hayward does a tush push in Washington, just shoves this dude over like 5 other human beings. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a wild team, man. But yeah, enjoy the red zone highlights for Darnell Washington. I'm not drafting Steelers tight ends. Charlie Kohler, hyped him up a little bit already. David Njoku had 3 top 8 tight end seasons, 2022, 2024. I drafted him a lot last year because I'm freaking dumb sometimes. A lot of knee injuries going on. I don't like the fact that Njoku made it out of like the first two or three rounds of free agency without any suitors. Ends up signing here for not that much money after the draft. I think we've already seen the best years of his career. Talk about Eric All, Jatavian Sanders. All right, he's with the Panthers, but they always rotate him. Tommy Trembles, and Mitchell Evans. Dave Canales, since he's been there since 2024, 3rd fewest targets. Again, they add someone like Chris Brazel. We'll adjust to it if the snaps come in week 1. It would be Jatavian Sanders, my chip. I doubt there's much there. And then finally, Justin Jolly. If we did see a scenario for this dude, I think it's like the Broncos like their young tight ends and they cut Evan Ingram before camp, but before week 1, I just don't know why they would still have him on the team unless they wanted to keep him to this point. So I will say Justin and Jolly both start with a J, just like Joker. Yeah, I don't have it here. Now that I've made that really dumb joke at the end, I think that is going to wrap up this edition of another tier video, guys. I have run out of things to tier, though, for now. So going to be getting more into the streets, talking to some of the, again, best analysts around the industry. Got an interview with Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points coming up on Thursday. So make sure you guys check that one out. And then also is getting more into draft season, okay? I do want to talk some more, just highlight the late round tight ends. Again, probably in like a shorter video. But for me, like I wanted to spend this last month really going long on some of these tier videos and then also just doing some more one-offs going position by position. So now with August on the way and the preseason football games starting to come and training camp reports, we can get in the streets, we can get in the weeds, we can go through draft strategy, we can go through risers and fallers with the training camp reports, with the preseason action, all that and so much more. So again, I'm probably not going to plan on going this long with more videos than not, but I did just rip out, an hour-long training camp thing last week. So I don't know. We got stuff to say. It's a fun time saying it, and I appreciate the support from everyone that's been joining me while getting this channel started. So as always, make sure you check out my work on RotoWire.com if you're into reading things in the year 2026. A lot of really cool tools as well. We do have a free mock draft tool I'll be tweeting about here soon that you guys can check out. And again, for free. Why do you not want to do that? Otherwise, again, just some cool stuff going on. So if you like the video, please like the video, and it always helps when you hit that subscribe button as well. Until next time, everybody. I'm Ian Hartitz. Who's awesome? You're awesome. Take care, everybody.